We're live?
Hi.
Hello, everybody. What day is it today?
I think it's the 21st. Is it the 21st?
It is the 21st. I'm losing track of the days. I'm sure a lot of people in the chat are also losing track of the days just because nights are getting longer, days are getting shorter, and your capacity to novel is at an all-time low. At least that's how I feel sometimes. Should we do introductions?
Hi, I'm Kristen. I'm the Young Writers Program intern for fall 2017.
I'm Nick. I am the programs intern for the fall. And today is our fourth write-in?
Yeah.
This is our fourth write-in of this year's NaNoWriMo. How's it feeling so far? Like, where are you at? Like,
I am on the team of people who are super behind. I haven't come up with a good name for it yet. We were talking about maybe the stragglers, but it has such a negative connotation.
Yeah.
For those of you who are new to us, who don't know what a virtual write-in is, basically we talk about different issues that we're having with writing, and we discuss ways to deal with those issues, and we learn about stuff, and then we have sprints. So we give you a prompt, and you can either write that prompt or not write that prompt, and it goes for 5 or 10 minutes, and we write and you write, and it's kind of like we're writing together. And then we talk about how the writing went.
Yeah. So today's topic, as we kind of mentioned, depending on where you are in the world, if you're in the United States, it's Thanksgiving week. Since we're also in the United States, our general theme for the overall theme for the write-in is going to be Thanksgiving-ish, but you can also insert whatever other holiday you want. But today's topic we've decided is going to be called Bringing the Zing Back. Bringing the Zing back, aka reminding ourselves what brings us joy, especially with regards to our writing. As I mentioned before, like, it's easy, especially at this point in the month, to feel like, your motivation to write the novel is it's dwindling. You're running on fumes. You're feeling uninspired. But you know what? That's okay. You're not the only person to feel that. And there are many ways to kind of get re-energized for the final push of the month.
So we were talking about, we wanted to hear from you about what you do when you need more joy, basically when you are feeling a lack of enthusiasm about either in your writing or in life. What are your tactics, your strategies for bringing that joy back in small, like even just small doses? How do you do that?
I'm seeing in the chat right now, a lot of people are talking about their word counts. I think that's a really good way to just kind of start up, saying, like, where are you at in your novel? So what's your word count right now? No matter what it is, it's fine. It's fine.
I'm at 21K.
That's okay. You can absolutely make that up. And don't forget, though, even if you only get X number of words, that's X number of words that you wouldn't have written otherwise. For me, I am also, I'm a bit behind. I'm at about 32,000, and I think by the end of today, I should be about 35,000. So I've got a little bit of ground to make up, but hopefully during today's write-in, I'll do that. I'm seeing a lot of people talking about word counts. A few people are over 50,000, a few over 60,000. Some people are in the 40s, kind of all over the map. But I think it's important to be proud of yourself for what you've written, no matter what,
Oh, someone says that these write-ins renew their nano joy.
That's good.
That makes me happy. I'm so glad.
I'm still going to be proud no matter what, since I've doubled the amount of words I stopped at last year. That's a really great attitude to have towards it. Even if it feels like, the remainder of the month is a little daunting, you can always kind of remember, like, how did I do before? How did I do last year? And how am I doing compared to that? I think that's a really good way of looking at it.
I lowered my word count goal to 40,000, which is why I'm like at 20, is because I'm halfway. Because I was super overwhelmed, and that was my way of like self-care.
Right.
I didn't do it at all.
That's a really important thing. Is like, remember, keep your head on straight while you're writing. Like, as much as we like to talk about, the 50,000 word goal, it's important to make sure that you get there in one piece too.
Music gives me joy. My
Reading a
region
book?
does sprints in their chat room. Oh, that would be yeah.
Reading a book gets me in the mood to write, except then I want to keep reading. That's totally true.
I can relate to that. Read a book that gets you in the mood to write. Yeah, that's what you just said.
Great. So do you want to kind of get us started on our first sprint, or do you want to talk a little bit more about the general topic?
Are you asking me or asking?
Asking you.
Oh, we can get started on the first sprint. Just keep sharing your
please keep sharing your
ideas because they're really helpful, and I want to keep reading them out.
Yeah.
Where am I? The first sprint.
Introduction to I'll lead into that, and then if you want to do the sprint. Basically, okay. our idea here is we talked about a lot in our prep session. It was like, what do you do when you're starting to feel a lack of joy and enthusiasm towards your writing? So what kind of things can we write about that will reinvigorate ourselves? So that's what our sprint's going to be about.
Yeah, and that same theme of bringing the joy back.
Exactly. Getting there in one piece. As you can tell, our this past weekend was the night of Writing Dangerously, which is a really fun, exciting event that NaNoWriMo holds every year. And as fun as it is, we're all still a little bit in recovery mode from it. So if we're feeling a little like low energy, we're going to try and get that back up, especially with the writing, but bear with us. So yeah, our first sprint, which we will put in the chat then. I'll get this timer set up if you want to read the sprint out loud.
Okay, so we were thinking about like your favorite things, because in the like same theme of things that bring you joy. Identify your favorite element, that is character, place, thing, whatever, of your story so far, and write a scene that is centered around that thing. Kind of as a way of reminding yourself what it is that makes you happy, and also what it is that brings you joy about your own story. And again, you can take our suggestion. You can just keep writing your own thing. That's totally cool. And we're going to do this one for 5 minutes. Yeah.
So again, we're gonna be putting the actual prompt into the chat and into the description box. But in the meantime, so just what's your favorite thing in your story? What makes you happy? And just write about that. All right, so I'm going to start the timer right now, and we'll let you know when you have about half the time left. And begin. You've got about 2.5 minutes left. And that's the timer. Everybody, put your noveling fingers down. Okay. Oops. Let's hear what your word counts are. The time. Okay. Are you in the middle of a sentence?
I've been writing really, really long sentences.
That's fine. How many words did you get? I'm seeing a lot of people saying, 200 range.
293.
300. Wow, that's better than I did. I got about 230. 111 words, not bad while I'm watching wrestling. That's good. Y'all are doing really great. 402. That's fantastic. Just crossed par today, so everything else is a bonus. That's great.
I've never gotten more than 300 words in a 5-minute sprint.
Yeah.
Since I started doing word sprints.
So what did you write about? It seems like you're really getting into it. Did you find your enthusiasm?
I'm just starting a new chapter.
Okay.
And so I tried to follow the prompt, but I couldn't think of anything because it's in a very bad point in the story, and so nothing really fit. Because at this point the roses aren't even blooming yet, because I'm in winter. So
you are or the story?
The story.
Okay.
The point in the story.
Okay. Yeah.
So okay, what about you? Did you write about the prompt?
I did. Yeah, I wrote about one of my favorite elements of the story and kind of why I like it. Last night I finally got to introducing one of my favorite characters that I've kind of worked on, because she's just like an interesting character and like fun to write as. So instead of kind of plotting a little bit like
first person.
No, this has been third person.
Okay.
Writing about her has been interesting in comparison to kind of some of the more meandering that I've talked about in the past. So I feel like I've kind of broken out of some of the ditches or ruts that I had in past weeks. A little bit. I'm still working towards it, but I'm definitely feeling a little better on my story now.
Like I said, I cut my word goal by 10,000 words, and so I'm behind, but also I had a really long drive at one point, and I mapped out the rest of my story in my head. And of course, my phone doesn't take very good notes, so I tried to take it like as I was driving, and
like dictate?
like voice. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Because I don't just type.
Yeah,
you
don't. Yeah.
But it took weird notes, so I had to decipher it later. But yeah, I basically mapped out the rest of it, so I think I know basically what's going to happen from here on.
Great.
So I'm hoping it'll help.
Somebody in the chat says, I just finished my 50K. Well done. Thumbs up for me. Some people saying, how to recapture that joy. Some people are talking about the long weekend coming up as kind of being a really good time to get that writing done. That's great.
I wrote about my main character having kind of a date during a stormy afternoon. That's the best. I love that.
That's really nice. Yeah, lots of people talking about their personal experience with kind of trying to get back into the enthusiastic part about writing. The past few days have been really inspired and able to write several thousand words. Today, though, I can barely focus on the work. That's okay. Not every day is going to be a winner, but I'm really proud of you that you've really kind of pushed through the last couple of days. That's great. Characters enjoying the silence with her lover, with him reading on the couch while she sits next to him knitting Christmas sweaters. I love the calmness between them. Really nice. I love kind of calm scenes.
I do too, actually.
Yeah. I mean, those are kind of my favorite scenes, just because they're a little harder to write sometimes, because especially if you're used to having a lot of action. But I feel like it's a really good opportunity to kind of just reassess your characters, have everybody kind of calm down and say, like, where are we? What do we do from here? And
also, you can make even those interesting by adding details about like the physicality and how their feelings manifest in their body. And it's like small details about the scene and kind of slowing down, zooming, that kind of
Stop
stuff.
To smell the roses.
Adding dialogue. Yeah, that kind of thing.
I've always had a hard time writing stories that go like at a breakneck pace.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like, how do you adjust from there,
Do you like? I also have trouble reading at a breakneck pace. Like if something is going like really intense or quick is happening in a story, I tend to skim it because I get like anxious and like read it fast because I read it with the same pace, and then I miss a lot of it.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, I'm still reading the chat. There's a lot of like great stuff.
The plot must go on.
The plot must go on. I feel like my brain is starting to feel like a fried egg, but the plot must go on. That's really great. After last week's anteater analogy, I think fried egg is is this week's analogy.
I love it.
Yeah. So do you want to go on to the first discussion topic?
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Okay. So we wanted to talk about, kind of in the spirit of holiday season, interpersonal conflict, because while a lot of great things come out of holidays, a lot of times there are points where interpersonal conflict can sometimes come to a head, and it can mean a lot of arguments. It can mean family stuff. If you're staying in your house with your family, there can be conflict there. If controversial things come up at the dinner table, that can be a problem. If ancient history with a sibling, like old conflicts come back up, lots of things, as I'm sure you can imagine. So we wanted to talk about how to develop, like, what kinds of conflicts happen in between different characters, and how you develop that throughout your story. Do you want to elaborate?
Yeah. Our first discussion being about I don't know, if we go back to the discussion we had before about, like, how do you slow down your novel, especially if you're going at like a really fast pace. In a similar vein, like, how do you develop new conflicts, or how do you keep pushing forward existing conflicts, especially if you've reached a point where things are kind of settled down. I know a lot of people in the chat have talked about, like, I've hit the point in my novel that I had planned out to, and now I don't know how to kind of keep going, or I've reached 50K and I've reached the end, but I want to keep going. So how do you generate conflicts? And so we figured we'd talk a bit about, like, basic ideas of, like, what's going to make your characters clash, just outside of your story, what makes people clash in general. So we just kind of like listed out like, okay, you know, what can bring people to conflict, you know, difference in ideals, culture, actions, beliefs, identities, personalities, affiliations. As you mentioned, yeah, like ancient history with siblings, especially can be like a family-related one. So there's a lot of different avenues that you can go through to search for conflict with your characters, or you know, make it kind of pop again.
Yeah.
You know?
So we wanted to hear also about the ideas that you all had in terms of this. Did you want to move on to the next thing as well, or
the next part of the discussion?
Yeah.
How you develop it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we want to ask you in the chat, aside from identifying, you know, what will make your characters clash, talking about how you develop that. Because I feel like it's one thing to say like, these characters don't like each other because of X.
Yeah.
You know, because you know, this person's neighbor, you know, cut down their hedges without asking, and that's created some conflict. That's one way to develop conflict, but it's especially if you're talking about like a larger scale thing, because I know for a lot of people, like with their novels, they want to have like something really exciting and epic going on, like a war or something, or a catastrophe. And for me, I feel like for me personally, I feel like it's easier to create small conflicts that build up to larger conflicts, because you don't just start with a huge epic, you know, battle or whatever.
I don't know if I'd use the word easier.
Yeah,
but
easier. This is my experience.
Like for me, it's a lot harder to do that, but that also makes the story so much better and so much more interesting.
It's relatable.
And so the question is, how do you pull that off? How do you
that's the hard part.
Set up a thing where there is a conflict between two characters, and then show how over time it builds or it changes in some way, and then how it contributes to the larger setting and the larger conflict in general. And how are the characters also developing at that point? So we wanted to hear what you had to say about that.
So how have you been developing your conflicts, whether they are between characters, between a character and their environment, between a character and themselves, any type of conflict? How have you been developing that? So feel free to share that in the chat, and we'll kind of read some of these.
In a budding romance, I have an old boyfriend show up. Yeah, that's a real conflict.
Absolutely. Main character never got a clear picture of conflict between the two other characters, but made friends with both of them, and then one of them died. That's going to create more conflicts, and that's kind of an interesting avenue you can go down, like setting up a situation in which there is no conflict, or like people have resolved, and then how do you reopen that rift?
Internal struggle.
I'm all about the internal struggle.
From personal experiences.
Yeah.
And each person's experience is different. So they go at people deal with like problems differently. And a lot of times, if they're trying to resolve the same problem, that can be
a good way of going about
it. A challenge.
Yeah.
I was going to say problematic, but that was redundant.
As we said, we're still kind of recovering from the night of writing dangerously. I know for me, especially if I'm writing like a first-person story, I just try to think a lot about like what's gonna make me conflict with a person. You don't have to necessarily be writing about a character that is like yourself, but I feel like if you think about the conflicts that you may have with other people in your life or in the world, how can you kind of apply those to your characters? Because I feel like when you're talking about like how can you make your story more relatable, I would say that's where again, like small interpersonal conflicts can really come into play and make it feel a lot more organic.
And the other thing is that things that might seem trivial to an outside person can be really huge, like to the people who are in the conflict, So a lot of times, like my favorite kinds of conflicts in stories are ones that are not grand, epic kinds of scale things, but are about, you know, the kinds of things you were saying about the hedges or that kind of thing.
They don't need to be earth-shattering.
Because that reveals a lot about your characters and what matters to your characters and how your characters interact with each other in the world, and other conflict. And there's just so much to be developed from the characters from those smaller conflicts that can almost be subplots, but also feed into your bigger plot.
I would say, kind of going off of that, you don't need to start with a conflict. A conflict doesn't start on its own. The conflict starts with the characters. I know a lot of people in the chat are mentioning like stories that don't really have a conflict, or like it's kind of passive, or it's entirely internal. One person in the chat, I realize that what I keep calling a conflict isn't really a conflict. Mostly my characters just know that it's ridiculous to be in love and are trying to slow down what they want. I mean, I'm kind of with you on that. Like a conflict of a story, or especially an interpersonal conflict, doesn't necessarily have to be a conflict or a clash. Personally, I know this is kind of diverging from the traditional, story arc format. But personally, like my favorite kinds of stories are ones that don't necessarily have antagonists or don't necessarily have conflict, quote unquote, or like all of the conflicts that arise are internal. What's my example? I forget what he said, but there was I'm a big fan of like Hayao Miyazaki, and I know in a lot of his movies, and I know he's talked about this in interviews, but he talks about how a lot of his movies just don't have antagonists, like they don't have bad guys, because it's not about characters battling each other or figuring out which one is better or want opposing things. It's more about just overcoming some challenge or obstacle, finding your way out of a mystical bathhouse, something like that.
That's why I love anti-heroes, because you're forced to relate to the character, and seeing them as a bad guy or a good guy is just so black and white that it almost takes out the point of the questions that maybe you could be asking. Do you want to move on to the sprint?
Yeah, just, before we do, I would say my personal advice regarding conflict would be, just try and reflect on what makes you conflict with another person or a thing. Think about interpersonal conflict of your characters. Think of it as a real world thing. Think about how conflicts that you face arise
in your daily life,
even if they're really small things. If you're conflicting with your toaster because it's just not working, which is what happened this morning, it took my bread. It made it too toasted, which I didn't like. I was really upset about it.
First world problem.
That was my conflict for the morning. Thinking about real life conflicts, thinking about your own experiences, and trying to inject those into the story, I think can be a really good way of building up and developing kind of natural, realistic conflicts.
Okay, so for the second sprint, which will be 10 minutes, your characters host a holiday dinner. In
the spirit of Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Also, we understand that not all of you celebrate Thanksgiving.
Yeah, exactly.
What is the controversial discussion topic that comes up? And can you write a scene in which that topic comes up and an argument takes place? Can you write it with the dialogue and what are the people thinking and feeling and what's going on in their bodies? And maybe, if you're Nick, write about the food.
I like writing about food, okay? I love it.
I'm kidding.
But I mean, kind of, again, going back to like thinking about your own experiences, what has potentially, created controversy or arguments at the dinner table with family, people who you love and you like spending time around. You're not always going to get along, and so what are examples of ways that can conflict? All right, so 10 minutes, and we'll let you know at the 5-minute mark, and begin. You have about 5 minutes left. About 1 in the left. Oh, and that's the time. Okay. That's the time. All right, everybody. Share your word counts. How far did you get? I'm going to count mine real fast.
I got 440.
Nice. I got 411. Nice. So as the numbers start rolling in, good job, everybody. Really, really great job. What did you write about?
I wrote about my character's family having mixed feelings about her becoming a troll hunter. And they think that she shouldn't be because she's just setting herself up for, well, death, potentially.
They're afraid for her safety.
And also they're afraid that the trolls will ruin her life. Because they know that she's trying to get rid of them.
Nice.
And so they're trying to not talk about it, and the conflict is that they're not talking about it, and it's like an elephant, and she knows that they're judging her, and they're trying, and like her parents are trying to keep everyone else from finding out.
So it's a secret troll hunting.
I mean, she doesn't keep it a secret. Her parents keep it a secret.
Okay, I see. So her parents kind of like told, like, so FYI, aunt and uncle, are coming over. They don't know about the whole troll hunting thing. It's just
don't tell them. Definitely don't tell them because they will not be responsive to that.
Yeah. Really cool.
What about you?
I actually thought a lot about I think our next sprint's going to be 10 minutes, by the way. Our next discussion is going to be 10. I talked about I thought about who's going to conflict with the dinner table, because I have a pretty large cast of characters, and so I kind of went back to my technique, my method of just trying to think about personalities, like how are they alike and how are they different, kind of at a really fundamental level. And what was interesting is I always thought that a couple characters that I have that are really different wouldn't get along, but actually it's the other way around. The characters that are really similar to each other, I have a couple characters who are pretty outgoing, kind of abrasive, well-meaning but kind of abrasive people. And I feel like they would absolutely tear into each other, even if they're on the same side, so to speak. But I feel like they would be arguing over the last turkey leg, because they're very kind of dominant personalities.
And they all have to be right.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah, everybody's got to be right.
I know so many people like that.
Yeah, going back to the drawing from your own life thing.
Yeah.
So what are people talking? What did everybody in the chat write about? What kind of conflicts did you describe? Narrator just revealed that the main character's boyfriend is the illegitimate son of the main villain. That's a nice development. I like that.
Main character's mother forgot to make the mashed potatoes for Thanksgiving dinner.
That would, at my house, that would not fly.
That's a real conflict.
It is a real conflict. Although, to be fair, I'd probably be the one that forgot potatoes.
221 words of vegans versus meat eaters.
Yeah, that's definitely going to get contentious. Although, I don't know, just make a big plate of pasta for Thanksgiving. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how would I resolve that.
Mashed potatoes and
or just
vegetarian stuffing.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can have like vegetarian turkey.
Anyway,
Watch a soap opera. They're great argument inspiration. That's great. That's a great.
That's actually really great advice. A noble having mead spilt over him at a banquet and demanding satisfaction. Nice.
Have what? What's
spilling mead?
Oh, mead.
Not meat.
I thought you said meat.
The flatmate trying to justify that it's okay to dye the cat to match her Halloween costume, and the cat has no say. That's not a conflict I would have considered, but that's really cool.
My main character is trying to figure out why her father sent people to kidnap her. For the insurance money, probably.
Probably. Do you want to move on to the last discussion topic? We got.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then, moving on, thinking about resolving conflict and how do we resolve these conflicts that we've created or that we have in our daily lives? You know, little things that cause us problems, like the toaster or whatever. It's
a bad example.
How do we resolve those? That's what you're using.
I'm sorry.
How do we resolve those conflicts? What brings characters together if there are, it's between two characters? How do you resolve it over time? How do you, have the characters strategize over time? Or try things and fail and then, eventually find a way that works or deal with it themselves rather than trying to work with the other person, making decisions themselves that will fix the conflict, resolve it in some way. And also, how do your characters grow and learn from these conflicts? Because, what's the long-term effect on your character's development? How does it play into your greater plot arc? How does it play into who your character is and
where they're going?
Affect where they're going and who they become. Yeah,
these are really good questions to consider. And obviously, we could go forever talking about these topics, like what brings conflicts together. And I gotta say, sometimes, a lot of the time, resolving your story conflicts is a lot harder than getting them going in the first place. At least in my experience. I think I'm trying to think about what would my approach be. I guess thinking back to the stuff that I wrote for the past sprint. Buy a better toaster. Oh my god, you're never gonna let it go. Talking about kind of clashing personalities, I would say what brought the characters together in the first place? How did they meet each other, and why do they why are they getting along in the first place? I know that their personalities are going to clash, or something's going to happen that's going to make them, disagree. But, agreeing to disagree, or realizing, okay, if this person is talking, or wants the last piece of food, maybe I'll let him have it this time, and then we'll switch next time. There's a lot of different ways to resolve that. One person in the chat, Catherine Williams, has said, eventually they agreed to differ. Importantly, they learned to respect each other's sensitivities without necessarily understanding them.
I think it's an important skill.
Absolutely. Even if you're at the dinner table and you're disagreeing with somebody on some topic, sometimes the best thing to do is you're not going to necessarily have their entire perspective over one meal, but kind of agreeing you know what, we're not going to see eye to eye on this topic, but I'm not going to let that keep me from enjoying your company,
Yeah. Someone on here, I just want to say, called you a toaster wrangler, and I think you should put that on your resume.
All right. I like that, but yeah. So what are some other topics? How let's ask you in the chat, how do you tend to resolve conflicts in your story? I know that we've talked about this before. One way is kill off a character, get one person out of the conflict permanently. That's one way to do it. Which it's a good one. Although I feel like having a character die at the Thanksgiving table is not necessarily not as peaceful a resolution as we would hope.
And resolutions don't have to be peaceful.
That's true. Resolutions don't have to be peaceful, but it's about de-escalating the conflict and bringing it to a close. I think keeping in mind where you want your characters to go, as you mentioned, is a really, really good thing to do when you're talking about resolutions. How if if a character overcoming some conflict with somebody else, you want that to lead to, you know, their ultimate, you know, fulfilling their goal in the end. Think about, you know, okay, what steps are going to happen after this to help them achieve that goal. One way that some people are mentioning is resolve a conflict by introducing a bigger conflict. You know, if people are disagreeing or, you know, fighting about something, bringing in a bigger thing that they can, you know, work together on.
Unite against
a common enemy is always good.
But then those issues will always be there, and once the bigger thing is vanquished, those things will come back out again.
Yeah, that's for the sequel though. No, that's really good though. I think. Do we want to do the sprint now?
Yeah, that'd be a good
All right.
idea.
Cool. Do you want me to read that one, or do you?
You can read it.
Okay. So this sprint, as with any sprint, again, you can follow along with it or not if you want. This one's kind of relate back to the second sprint. So thinking about, you know, last time you created a conflict, this time resolve the conflict. So try and continue the previous scene, only this time have something happen, like something, you know, more positive, wacky or funny or touching that diverts or otherwise resolves the conflict. So if people are disagreeing at the dinner table, what's something that can happen in that scene that that'll make them settle down or, you know, agree to disagree. So this sprint is going to be 10 minutes again, right?
Yeah, 10 minutes.
And then we'll wrap it up real quick. So 10 minutes, and we'll run you at the 5-minute mark and 1-minute mark, and begin.
I think it works.
Yes. about 5 minutes left. You have about 1 minute left. And that's the time. All right. We're going to just try and wrap this one up quickly. Everybody put your writing fingers down, share your word counts, and share what you talked about. For me, I got, I'm still trying to count that word count. I got 459 words. What about you?
464.
Ah, you got 5 more than me. That's okay.
What was the funny incident that happened?
I
resolved your conflict.
The funny incident. Thinking about a funny incident. It's gonna seem very simple, but just like going back to the common other enemies. So like something else comes up at the dinner table that they are able to relate.
Distraction.
A distraction would probably come up.
It's my solution of choice.
Yeah, I talked about. I mean, characters that I talked about clashing in the previous sprint. They're kind of cut from the same cloth, and although that kind of results in some of that butting of heads, when it comes down to it, like at the core, like they respect each other and they protect each other.
This is also good for life suggestions if something comes up.
Mm-hmm. What about you? What did you write about?
So she's at a holiday dinner and they're talking about troll hunters and the trolls, and she's trying not to say anything, and then they serve pie and they realize that
it's troll pie.
No, someone brought sweet potato pie instead of pumpkin pie. And it would be a good idea, and that causes a bigger conflict, like a different conflict, and then they stop talking about the troll thing because they can't do anything about that anyway.
Because of the sweet potatoes?
No, because they're not going to go on a troll hunting mission at dinner,
Oh, that makes sense.
So,
I was thinking about the sweet potatoes as a conflict. I was like, I know that would be a conflict for me.
It's just everyone's very displeased, and so she is no longer the most annoying person to them in the room.
Yeah. That's good. So some of the things people are saying, well, real quick, my main character's dad explained that he's worried about her strange activity since she's considering moving to Chicago to live with her mom next year, and he wants her to be wise about that. Really good. I like that. That's, again, kind of a realistic conflict that can arise, but likewise, you can kind of figure out realistic ways to resolve them.
Backs down and drops the subject. That's admirable.
Yeah. Honestly, that's kind of a lot of how a lot of interpersonal conflicts get resolved, or at least swept under the rug. Getting transport out of the place. Great. Resolve the conflict by kicking him out. Not very healthy, but that'll settle things for the time being. Great. I think it's time to wrap it up.
Okay.
So what do we need to announce before we head off? So again, today's November 21st, so there are 9 days left.
Woohoo!
In NaNoWriMo. So just remember to keep on pushing with your novels. Hopefully some of what you said and some of what the other people in the chat have said has been helpful to you. As always, this write-in will be available on YouTube after the fact. Interpersonal conflict is a really big one, and especially around the holidays when you're spending time with family, that can come up. So, have some happy holidays wherever you are in the world. Try and get some, awesome writing in over the next week or so. If you make it past 50K, as I think a lot of people have said on this chat today, don't forget to validate your novel on the Nano website. It's pretty easy to do when you update your word count. And then, are we having a write-in next week?
I think so, yeah, because it's the 28th. The
28th, yeah. So our next write-in is going to be on the 28th, same time, same place.
Last few days.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for joining us. We have so much fun hosting these and reading what your novels are about and what you're working on. So thank you for that.
Thank you, guys. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.